The state of Oklahoma has scrapped plans for a July 1st start to Medicaid expansion. A lot is going on in the state of Oklahoma, and it can be quite confusing. We're going to try to break it down by thinking of two versions of Medicaid expansion and one Section 1115 demonstration waiver. Let's start with Sooner Care 2.0. This was Governor Stitt's version of Medicaid expansion for the state of Oklahoma, but it's more like a Medicaid block grant. It would cap funding for a Medicaid expansion and come with other restrictions like work requirements that makes it a little bit harder to maintain that Medicaid coverage for individuals. The governor vetoed a state bill that was designed to create the state funding portion of his own expansion plan and then withdrew that plan altogether. So as of right now, there is no planned Medicaid expansion starting on July 1st in the state of Oklahoma. Now, the governor proposed his capped Medicaid expansion plan back in March, more so to try to preempt the other version of Medicaid expansion. Remember, we said there'd be two versions of Medicaid expansion and one waiver. The second version of Medicaid expansion is one that looks a little bit more traditionally like what other states have for Medicaid expansion. That was a ballot measure. It was an effort to collect signatures to get the issue of traditional Medicaid expansion on the ballot in Oklahoma. And they got enough signatures so that will appear on the June 30th ballot for the primary in the state of Oklahoma. Now, that more traditional Medicaid expansion for the state of Oklahoma does not have work requirements or funding caps. And the state would still have to kick in its share of funding. Now, remember, the governor just vetoed the state funding portion of his own Medicaid expansion plan. So there are a lot of details still to parse out should that ballot measure actually pass at the end of June. But what was going on with the governor? Why did he cancel all of his plans? Well, he said that the state could no longer afford its portion of the Medicaid expansion due to COVID and the rising unemployment rate. Now, right now, the state of Oklahoma estimates that about 14% unemployment statewide can be attributed to COVID. But here's the irony of it. That just means that many more people are going to be eligible for Medicaid in the state of Oklahoma. But this is the time they chose to pull that Medicaid expansion away from the people of the state of Oklahoma, saying, we don't want to attribute the state dollars to such an effort. Oklahoma is one of 14 states that has not yet accepted that federal Medicaid expansion. Wisconsin, where we are, is another one, and we have a separate video talking about what's going on with Medicaid expansion in the state of Wisconsin. But here's another statistic that's interesting. Oklahoma had the second highest uninsured rate in the country, and that was before COVID. Almost 60% of those uninsured are in that Medicaid coverage gap, and they would benefit from Medicaid expansion one way or another. So what's next? Like we said, June 30th primary. Medicaid expansion is a ballot measure. It will appear on that June 30th ballot. If the people of Oklahoma voted for Medicaid expansion, it would start July 2021. And then, like we said, the state would have to figure out how they're going to kick in their portion of the funding. We said there were two Medicaid expansion conversations and one waiver conversation. Let's finish up with the Section 1115 demonstration waiver in the state of Oklahoma. Running in tandem with these Medicaid expansion conversations is the idea of how Oklahoma wants to change its Medicaid program overall. And like some of the other red states, they have asked for permission to add requirements to their Medicaid program, things like work requirements, premiums, co-pays for non-emergent use of the emergency room, denial of retroactive coverage, which means you can't backdate an application, eliminating non-emergency medical transportation, the rides to actually get to your Medicaid service appointment, eliminate hospitals' ability to enroll people in Medicaid, and cut EPSDT, that early periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment for those over age 18. Now, traditionally, that's for children up to age 21. They want to cap the age at which EPSDT attaches. We are in the closing days of the public comment period on this Section 1115 demonstration period in the state of Oklahoma. So that is still to be determined by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. CMS has been granting a lot of these waivers. They put a lot of them on hold right before coronavirus because of litigation. It is yet to be seen if when they get to determining whether Oklahoma can move forward with this waiver, if that will be approved. A lot to talk about in the state of Oklahoma. Next thing to watch is that primary, June 30th. The next thing to watch will be what happens with that demonstration waiver. You can read more about it in some articles we will link in the description below.